Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fresh from the Studio, Austin Studio Tour Edition. We are looking forward to hearing these four artists who are all participating in the studio tour. Lisa Choinacky, Malina Cipleu, Jieun, Beth, and Keva Richardson. They'll each tell us where their studios are, and we'll put their stop numbers in the chat. Each artist will have 10 minutes to present what they're working on, what you'll see during the tour. And at the end, we'll do questions and comments with all the artists. So beginning today is Lisa.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I want to thank everybody for having me. I'm a painter as of late, and for those that don't know, I was with Women in the Work over 10 years ago as the gallery manager. So I appreciate and love your mission, and I understand and respect all the hard work that goes into programming like this and from the day to day. So thanks so much. Let's get started. And can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. And I don't know why I didn't start on the very beginning. Here's my intro page. Hello. So if an artist statement could be a picture, this would be mine. This is my brain. And I'd like to quote Carl Jung, who says, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And I found that this illustration, it's from the public domain, little print. And I just felt it was funny because I was sort of painting things like this. Jumping a little bit backward before I share what's fresh from the studio is work that I was doing, ink work I was doing in around 2016. This work was very meditational. You can see there's line, balance, and orbits, kind of finding the calm within chaos here. And this is just kind of a reference point to move in my evolution of my visual language. And this is more recent, where I would take ink paintings and I would digitally collage them. And when I made this, I'm like, oh, this is like some lo-fi sci-fi movie, like or maybe something from the Twilight Zone. So I got a real kick out of this. So I do have, I lean towards science and science fiction when I come as far as sourcing images and things. Speaking of science, I just want to jump to kind of go through some visuals that relate to my work and you'll find in my work. Because there's a lot of symmetry and balance in my work, I just wanted to show some images of the geometry within our solar system. This is geometry within each of our planets. I think a lot about what's known and what's unknown. And so black holes are so fascinating to me. And I think about how do we learn about things we don't know? I mean, this picture just came out in 2022. We take pictures, we draw diagrams, and this is a diagram of the event horizon, the inner and outer event horizon of black holes. And honestly, when I'm not a scientist or an artist, so I, come to science with a sense of wonder. And, I just want to, excuse me, I'm tripping up here. But yeah, so you'll see some of these images that I have pulled into my visual language. And then, how do we learn about things? We come up with ideas and theories. And this is an illustration of the theory of the wormhole, which I think is so fascinating. And I love movies that tackle this. Also visually, this is a shape that shows up in my work, the negative space of this wormhole theory. And if we're going to jump to the tiny things, let's talk about particles and cells. So as far as in quantum physics, the particles are waves, and these are some visuals of the hydrogen wave function. So I'm just in love with all of these diagrams. Just kind of seeing how symmetry and balance exists on the tiniest level. And then here this is cells dividing. And I can't talk about geometry without referencing the oh my gosh, I have lost my way. The vesica piscis, which is two forms coming together, joining as one. You see here, there's golden ratio, the idea of duality that I talk about in my work, two things joining. It connects, spiritually speaking, the mind and the heart, the spirit and the physical, and science and spirituality. So again, as an artist, it's like I'm writing poems, referencing things that I don't, I guess the things that I think about, things that I wonder about, and things that are referenced. I reference things abstractly in my work. Oh. I think this is sort of a painting I did, an ink painting recently, and this kind of shows, I don't mean to have a hierarchy here, but there is a balance and symmetry on a tiny molecular level, and then there's symmetry within nature and flowers. There's symmetry within the body, and of course there's symmetry in space as well. So moving forward to more, this is like more of my studio work that I've been working on the past 2 years. This is a watercolor and ink painting. And, if you kind of see my references here, to merging forms. When people, it's funny how you kind of learn from other people's perspectives, because when folks came to see this in person, they were like, wait, are you looking through a telescope or a microscope? And I'm like, oh, I love that play, because we're talking about two halves, two different things, two different perspectives. And here's another. You can kind of see that reference to wormholes here, sort of celestial references. And diving in, this is ink on paper, cut paper that I collaged, thinking about things like the metaverse and the layers of reality. Another digital collage of ink painting. And this sort of has my wonky hand in it. More symmetry here. I should say more. This is all going to be symmetrical things. Paintings that I have digitally manipulated. Again, kind of I call this my metaverse series, my meta series. This is a watercolor I did. I feel like there is like this symbolically, kind of that striving to find togetherness and to connect. So on a personal level, I think these things symbolize that. And this is very recent. This is Blue Halo. The thought of that black hole just being the darkest matter and trying to achieve that visually. And obviously, we can think about black holes, but we can think about the eclipse that we experienced recently too. This is a pencil and pastel drawing. And the idea of multiple black holes is exciting and terrifying to me too. So here I was, and these are just actually like very peaceful and to make, with the repetitive circles, with the repetitive brush strokes. But even though I like thinking about things bigger than myself, because it gives me perspective, sometimes I get when I think about black holes and I think about multiple black holes potentially forming giant black holes, that can be terrifying. I just wanted to see what this looked like on paper. And this piece was included in Red Dot. This is actually called Unknowing. And, really think about the negative space as much as the positive space in my work. And then I think about, obviously, what I've been saying is what we know and understand and what we don't know, but maybe have to accept or not be afraid of. And so you'll see this throughout my more recent work. And this is ink and acrylic. I don't know if any of you have used that Blackest Black paint. I am crazy about it. And so I try to incorporate it, even though I love the nature of water media. Sometimes I like that contrast of something really dark and opaque. And again, fresh from the studio, you'll see these items at East. And of course, obviously my work is minimal, and work like this, I'm calling this done. But there's always a thought of, is it done? Is it too little? Do I need to do more? But I'm just going to rest on this is enough. And I want to thank you all for having me again. I'm at Stop 460 on this second weekend of East.
Thanks so much. Well done. Next up, we have Keva Richardson.
My name is Keva Richardson, and I am a mixed media artist who creates contemporary abstract landscapes. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Everyone see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So my experience growing up in a small town in West Texas informs my current work, and my source material is usually gathered from country drives and road trips, and from personal observations and memories of the land and skies. So today I'm coming to you from my home office because my studio is in the process of getting prepared for the tour, and it's quite a mess. But here's a few photos of my studio at the Canopy Complex and how I work. And I usually work flat on tables and have several pieces going at once. And for a few years now, I've been using acrylics, primarily acrylic inks, because they're very fluid and easy to mix. As you can see, I do a lot of color mixing and a lot of color studying. So for the Austin studio tour, I'll be showing two bodies of work, which I've been working on for the past 5 or 6 years. And I like to work in series because it keeps me working and it helps me explore a topic more thoroughly and carefully, and often it develops into another body of work. So this first image that I'm showing you is from a series called Highways, and they were inspired by trips to West Texas and to the Panhandle. And so through abstraction, by painting and drawing and cutting and layering, I'm developing work that reflects the way these landscapes affect me. My intention is to describe the abstract visual sensation I get while driving through these ancient landscapes. So I'm trying to capture like a fleeting and transient moment. And the photo reference to the right is an image I took while driving to Marfa on a misty day with the Ocotillo whizzing by my car window. And on this piece, I used hand-drawn and painted paper, and each row has many pieces of small cut-up paper fragments of the initial image, which are collaged into a panel in vertical lines. And I'm trying to create vibration, rhythm, movement in a minimal form. And this is an image I took of a train outside of Fort Stockton. And then I came back to my studio and I created paper, remembering the colors of the land, the boxcars, and the movement and the emotional connection I felt. As you can see here, I use acrylic, gouache, and graphite to create the paper, and then I began the process of deconstructing it into images, and the images into hundreds of small fragments. And then the fragments are collaged onto a lined panel board, which I've painted with several layers of color. And I sometimes draw on the board as well, just to create more layers and textures and maybe hints of the object. And then this image is the final result. And I love doing these big collage works. Every step from the paper painting to the cutting to the collaging, it's very time consuming and tedious, but it's also very meditative. And although the work appears minimal, it's quite complex. This image is based on a memory of the summer roadside carnivals that we had in the small town where I was raised. And I was trying to capture the feeling of driving into complete darkness and seeing the glowing lights of the carnival and the Ferris wheel, and how otherworldly and exciting it felt. And I tried to express the wonderment of being enveloped by the sky and the land. So my latest collage piece is more conceptual, and it's inspired by the immigrant story, or anyone making a metaphorical or a literal journey, the fear, excitement, and courage it takes to reach your destination. And these images show again the process for the collages, the hand-painted paper, the cut-up pieces, and the progress of collaging hundreds of pieces of paper into a panel board. And then this is the outcome. You'll see the divisions of the land, the sky, and the symbolic river, and the moon is a constant and stable guide. Okay, the second body of work I will be showing on the tour is called Lifting. And I began creating this series around 2019. The world was in a chaotic period with civil unrest, divided politics, and the pandemic was on its way. So, like most of us, I felt disconnected, frustrated, isolated, and I needed a way to contribute to my own well-being as well as those around me. So I thought about how my artwork could reflect these feelings, which led me to think about the ways that we are actually connected and the things that we do have in common. So I started drawing sketches, concentrating on familiar shapes, forms, lines, and of course nature, the moon, clouds, skies, and the objects that ground us. And then these are my first two attempts at putting these emotions on paper. Each piece begins with a monotype made from ink on plexiglass, and then the image is printed on pastel paper. The underlayers represent the uncertainty and the randomness that we all experience at different times in our lives, while the top layers bring a sense of calm and order, something that our mind already recognizes. So I'm always taking a lot of photos of the ever-changing skies, and as I started sharing these works publicly, more sky photos began showing up in the messages from my friends and family and acquaintances. And I love that because maybe the work is drawing more attention and awareness to the natural beauty of the world surrounding us, and that was my intention. These are a couple of my source images and the first and second monotype prints on the paper. From there, I began to layer the familiar shapes and lines on top of the monotype. And then this is the finished result. This is called Floating Blue Clouds, and I love the idea of a floating world, which is taken from the ukiyo-e, a period of woodblock printmaking in Japan, which depicted images of everyday life and the beauty of the natural world. And then today the term is more loosely defined as living in the moment and being present. These are two more examples of the series on paper. Again, you can see the layers sometimes started with a wash of color first and then a monotype print, and then layers of familiar shapes, lines, and form. Okay. This recent piece, along with a few others, were created on canvas, which allows me to work a little bit larger. And again, I started with a monotype and then painted the floating clouds on top of the printed image. This piece is called Clouds Over the Springs, and it is almost from two perspectives. One is if you're floating in the water looking up at the clouds, but also from a bird's eye view looking down from above. And finally, these are two new pieces on canvas that I'll be showing during the studio tour, Golden Moon and Moon Over the Springs. As you can see, the moon is my muse, and it is in much of my work right now. So I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes from artist David Hockney. This is definitely true for me, as it is for most artists. What an artist is trying to do for people is bring them closer to something, because of course art is about sharing. You wouldn't be an artist unless you wanted to share an experience or a thought. So we encourage you to come to the studio tour and support the artists, see where we work, and learn about our art. I'll have work at a show called One with More Feeling. It's at the Big Medium Gallery, and it's an exhibit curated by Shay Little and Coco Trevino. I'll also have a piece at the group show at the Carver Library, which is a good way to see work by most of the artists participating on the tour. And then also you can see my work at my studio at the Canopy Complex. So I just want to thank you to women and their work and for all you do to support women artists. You're so important in our community. We're so grateful for you. And thank you to Diane and Ann.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Keva. And next up is Malina.
Hello, I am gonna try to share my screen. So let's see if I'm succeeding. I'm Malina Cipleu, and I am originally from Romania, but I made my way to Austin, Texas. And I am a fused glass artist. Here are a few images from my hometown that is called Cluj, Napoca. It's a small university town, not small, but a university town, surrounded by hills and mountains, and it's beautiful. And I think a lot of my inspiration comes from walking with my parents on trails, and later on with my friends, and exploring the mountains and the Black Sea. My current studio is in my backyard, and that's my trusted assistant right there in front of the studio, my 14-year-old Vizsla. And this is a little bit of the inside of my studio, where I have my two kilns that you can see in the corner in the first picture. And they are a big part of my work because as I cut the glass or I work with glass powders and enamels, I layer them and then I put them in the kiln at various temperatures up to 1500 Fahrenheit. That's where the magic happens. So I do love my kilns a lot. In the second picture here, I am drilling holes through the glass with a drill press. So I do have a lot of equipment to cut the glass and grind the glass and so far and so forth. My other studio is at Canopy, and that's where I'll be showing my work during East Austin Studio Tour. And this is where I actually am right now. So you can see some of my work in the back, as well as on this wall over here. And this work will be exhibited during the studio tour. This is a studio where I just show my work. I don't work from here since I need my kilns, and this is not a well-suited space for that. As you can see in my work, it is very organic, and my process is very intuitive. While I create, I try to let go of expectations and judgment and just let a moment of awe, a transitory moment shine through. And I play a lot, actually, and I experiment, and no material is off limits. When I travel, I do a lot of, you can call them sketches or vignettes with whatever materials I find available. A lot of them are natural materials, as you can see. And then they make their way into my work little by little. And as I said, it's very intuitive. It comes up. Sometimes I do sketch, sometimes I sketch directly on glass. What I like about glass is the fact that I can work on both sides of the glass. So I can use powders on one side. I fuse that in the kiln, and then I can pull it out when it's cool. And then I can add on the back side and layer up a few layers of glass. And as you can see in this little picture in the middle, and it's hard to capture it in photographs, the glass allows you to see through and see the different layers. And for me, that is captivating, and it adds another dimension to the pieces. I do take a lot of pictures in my travels, and a lot of my work is influenced, or I have a lot of references of water in my work, because that's where I feel most at peace, around water, around bodies of water. So of course, it will show in my work. This is the piece that was in Red Dot at Women and Their Work, called Quietude. And it is referencing the picture that you saw before, and trying to capture a little bit of the texture of the water ripples, as well as the sand, with glass powders. So in the case of this piece, each line that you see there was made separately with stencils and glass powders, fused separately at a very low temperature, so the glass just fuses together, and then fused on a larger piece of glass. And when you touch it, it's very textural, which I really like. And I like the process of adding layers, as I said before, but this is in a different dimension. Here is a little bit of the process. Let's see if my video will pop up. And I hope it's not making too much noise. But it's me cutting the glass. Many times the glass, I mean, most of the times the glass comes off of the kiln rounded. So I like to finished off the edges, so we're cutting it. It's part of the process. And as in this piece that it's called also postcards, I like to create like sculptural pieces that overlap to see depth and so that's part of the process. A little bit more of how the pieces that you saw before the ocean postcards became. The first picture here shows the powders sprinkled on a sheet of glass and also crushed glass on top. I know it doesn't look like much in this picture, but as I said, the kiln does its magic, and the glass becomes transparent and colorful, and it starts speaking its own language. And next to it, it's a video of applying glass enamels and creating textures. So it's hard to paint with the enamels on the glass since it's not an absorbent surface. It's more shiny. But I do like playing with textures on glass and applying them in a different way. So that's a little bit of the process. And this is a little bit how some pieces start. Many times they start with a sketch, and on the left you can see that sketch. I like to use watercolors and inks to create my sketches. And then I start working my idea on glass. As you can see in the middle, I created sort of a frame with enamels and powders. And then I am starting to sketch where I would like to position my focal point. And then little by little, I add enamels and powders into the glass. And this is the finished piece that it's called Water Seed. Sorry. And let's see, I also create, sorry, I'll go faster because it seems my time is up almost. I create also installations that adapt to their spaces. And I love installing them in different locations. This is a close-up of that installation. These are more installations that I've made called Water Souls. Another iteration of them. I am very inspired by fungi and lichens, and that's how this installation started. And as I said, it can be in, depending on the space, it can be arranged in different ways. And I think that is the value for me of creating large installation pieces. And I just wanted to finish by showing how a piece starts in the kiln. For example, this one, where many times it's very geometric. As you can see, the glass, it's very angular. It's just pieces of glass cut together. And then when they melt together, they pull up like honey. So for me, glass is magical. And I want to share that with everybody. And that's why I also teach. This is from one of my classes. And Thank you so much for watching, and can't wait to see you at the East Austin Studio Tour. Thank you so much, Diane and Anne, for organizing this, and for Women and Their Work for including me in this series. Thanks.
Thank you, Malina. And our last artist for today is Jieun Beth.
All right. Thank you, Anne and Diane, for having me today. And it's really cool to hear from other artists. I see a lot of commonality I can relate to too. My studio number is 188. I will be participating for the West Studio Tour this weekend. So if you're available anytime between 12 to 6, I have my studio at the Culture Complex operated by Big Medium. So today I'll be talking about my creative research around identity. So over the past 10 years, I've created 10 series of work, each body of work looking at identity from a different perspective. Personally, I moved almost every 2 years until my mid-20s. In mid-20s, I came to Austin to get my graduate degree at UT Austin in studio art. So it's been the longest place I've ever lived in. But my nomadic experiences made me think about who am I and how do I relate to the world. In my first body of work called Shell, which was created in 2008 and 2009, I made 10 self-portraits. I was looking at my body almost like a still life, observing with detachment and disconnection. I was thinking about how my body entails such cultural connotation and how I respond to those notions. So this one is called Recognition. I manipulated my image on Photoshop, creating layers and off focus. And then I painted realistically to oil painting in diptych to convey the idea of confusion and unclarity. This one is from the same series called Self-Portrait 3. It's about 98 inches tall, oil and on paper. And again, I wanted to convey my sense of feeling overwhelmed by my own body and all the expectations around cultural identity. Therefore, I wanted to use the scale to convey that experience with the audience. I Am is my third series that I created. And in this series, I was looking at identity from the point of impermanence. So I collected objects from nature that are cut off from life, in other words, dead, flowers, birds, insects, leaves, and etc. And I painted them from observation on Yupo paper, which is synthetic paper, using watercolor. I wanted to capture the vibrancy of the pigments of the paint, but also create delicate shell-like images of these objects. I omitted any Western perspectives like perspectives or space of depth. Instead, I incorporated leaving the negative space, just like Eastern traditional painting techniques. I think Keva mentioned ukiyo-e, the floating images. And for me, this negative space is like a life force that embraces all these individual beings in this universe. Being is a series I created from 2015 to 16. And during this time, I was looking at identity from being in this moment. So who would I be without having the preconceived notion of the past or the expectation of the future? So I used encaustic wax, which is sort of like candle wax. It congeals very quickly in room temperature. Therefore, I have to respond in that moment without any kind of hesitancy. So in this piece on the left, it's called David. This is a portrait of my husband. I created an oil painting of him and then layered encaustic wax and have his hair, strands of his hair one by one layered on top of him. So it kind of creates this gauze and like also like a mummified preservation. It's about healing and a dedication to our partnership. The one on the right is called Mother, and this one is the epiphany or epitome of what I wanted to achieve in this series. I created this in 30 minutes. It's about 24 by 36 inches. Basically, I used all these objects that I found in nature and from my personal collective to use them as shapes, colors, lines. At the same time, I was connected to this inspiration just flowing through me without any kind of hindrance. Glow is a series I created in 2020, and the one on the left, Glow 3, is oil painting on linen. This is similar to the first two self-portraits I showed you. I first digitally manipulated so they're off focus, but also created a hyper-realistic painting of them. However, for this piece, I wanted the viewers to blend or blur their perception. As I was doing research on identity, I realized how perception is underpinned by these beliefs and stories that we adopt and we tell ourselves. And based on those perception, our identification with who we are or who others are can be very rigid. Therefore, it was just an invitation to blur our perception, therefore softening our boundaries between each other. The one on the right is called Portraits of Self. I overlay 5 different portraits of my friends and family and created one portrait. This is when I was starting to look at more so of how we have a collective identity as a whole. We are individual identities with singularities. However, we are all interconnected. Therefore, I wanted to see myself through my relationships. This is called Time Space. I've took a picture of a bouquet from same location over 30 days. And in the aftermath of these layers shows the time changing and also the blooming and fading of the flowers. So a poetic way of looking at impermanence, our form and our perception. These are, this is called Regale. This is one of the most recently completed body of work from 22 to 23. I started to realize how authenticity is the core of an identity, and I wanted to demonstrate my authenticity. So what I've done is I reconnected with the pure joy of making, especially with impressionist paintings and manga or manhwa in Korean. These are two Eastern and Western art forms that heavily or really excited me as a younger artist. So I'm making these shaped canvases, and on top of it, I'm using vibrant painterly strokes with some aesthetics of manga. And I'm also depicting archetypal aspects of my identity. So on the left is the Adonai, the one on the right is the Queen. These are called the character and the writer. So again, talking about how we create our own identity and our reality based on the stories and narratives we adopt, but also we talk about or we write. This is called Indigo Spirit. It's about 86 inches tall. This encompasses all the symbolic layers of identity that I've been exploring. So you can see the body identity, the physicality that's connected to the ground. However, there is the impermanence of an identity in the symbol of skeleton. And at the same time, there's that ethereal aspect of ourselves, which is shown in a holographic image of transparency. This is one completed finished work from my recent work. I have a lot of other works that are percolating in my studio, so please come and visit. But I'm continuing to work with shaped canvases as I love woodworking. And at the same time, I'm bringing in motifs, celestial motifs like black hole. Actually, the image Lisa showed, I was like familiar with that. And then the galaxy and the Milky Ways. This particular shape resembles a birdhouse. So it also contains ideas that I was exploring or that I have been exploring, which are about impermanence, form, layers of identity, and etc. But I am looking at it more from the point of view of unity identity. What would it be like to see ourselves as one? And what would that entail in terms of having a more of an expanded idea of who we are in this world? Okay, and that's really it. My studio is 188, and thank you so much, Diane and Anne and Women with their work. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing about all of y'all's work and seeing the processes behind it. Now I'm going to open up the floor for any questions or comments that y'all might have. If you don't feel like chiming in, you're always welcome to leave any text in the chat and I'm happy to read that out loud too. And in the chat, you'll also see everyone's artist websites, their stock numbers, as well as their Instagram handles too, if you want to follow up with them. So with our remaining time, if anyone has any questions, please go forth.
Oh, I did have a question for Lisa, actually. I was wondering, how do you like, how's your process in terms of, do you make a lot of them and then you choose the one that works the best, or sometimes do you have just this striking inspiration that comes out to be a perfect image?
Oh, I'm just always perfect. Just kidding. I make a lot of bad ones before I make a good one. And, you know, water media is so unpredictable, and it's difficult and it's unforgiving. And so, yeah, I do a lot. And there is like a rhythm to even the repetition of making, you know, you kind of find that sweet spot of when the water is or just the right amount of wet, just the right amount of dry to do the things I want to do. But yeah, it's there's a big stack of work that no one will see. But thanks for asking. And yeah, I try to do mainly brush and ink. I've never had any luck with stencils or masking or anything like that, so I generally avoid that. But yeah, there's just a lot of, I take a lot of trees down with me, unfortunately. But I reuse, I collage, and things happen after to that pile of work. I guess I'm curious. Go ahead.
No, please, Lisa, go ahead.
I just had a question generally about how people found the media that they use. I mean, I've dabbled in a lot of things, and I'm just kind of curious about how everyone kind of found their
I
medium.
For me, it almost found me, glass. I tried different mediums before, but I was invited to participate at a fusing night with other moms. We were volunteering for our elementary school kids. We were volunteering in the art class, and the teacher offered the class, I mean, a night of fusing. And I made 3 pendants and I was hooked. So, and then I just wanted to learn more. And I was lucky that there is a studio called Helios Fused Glass here in Austin. And that's where I took a lot of classes. And then I went and I branched off from there. Yeah.
So for me, I started off as a watercolorist. So I kind of wanted to stay in the realm of water media. It's just a lot easier and cleaner. Don't have to deal with all of the waiting time. And I was working with a mentor, and we would have weekly drawing classes in my studio, and he brought some of the ink, the acrylic inks, and said, try this out. And so I did, and I loved the way it was a little more color steadfast, and it just applied on the paper differently and more uniquely than the watercolor. And so I started experimenting more with that, and really enjoy using that. Enjoy mixing the colors and just the random things that it does compared to watercolor.
I think for me, I don't know how it happens, but I kind of know when I'm done with one body of work. And usually I have sort of like a reset time. And during those time, maybe I just kind of like play around and something happens and I don't really know when it happens. And it just makes sense that I start using certain kind of material. And interesting thing about my work is that I don't really know what I'm doing until I finish one body of work. It almost like reflects back to me what my art is about in that time, especially about identity. And usually the material has some kind of conceptual importance to it because it informs my process.
Nice. I think that was a really good question, Lisa, especially since y'all are all working so differently. And I actually had a question for Jieun, Beth. Your work on identity really resonated a lot with me, and I'm wondering, since you've worked through such a long span of time, when you look back on your older works, if you still feel like the same relationship to them, or if you feel that passage of time from where you are now versus where you were when you first made that work.
So I tend to have a very detached perspective once I complete a body of work. And this is another part that sort of just kind of spoke to me, art was teaching me, is that I didn't know it was gonna be this large body of works that are so diverse. I just followed my heart, so to speak. And when looking back, I had a lot of insecurities about how they are changing so rapidly. I felt like I have to focus on one aesthetic. But now that I've done so many bodies of works, I can see a thread of identity, or thread that weaves all of them together, which is identity and my sincere question of who we are as a human beings and as a collective. If anything, I just gathered a lot of insights from these process and research that I do, and I apply to my teaching as a teacher, or when I'm curating exhibits, I just apply those ideas for encouraging self-reflection, self-awareness, and etc. So I don't know if I'm clearly responding to your question, but I guess my point is it's sort of like out of my hand. I just kind of let it be and follow, trust that I am being guided. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay. So I think we have time for a couple more questions or discussions if y'all have any more comments to say. I guess in the meantime, I'll also talk about some exciting news for women in their work. We have our open call that was just released today. I encourage all four of y'all to apply, as well as those who are still in the audience with us. The open call is live on our website and will be open through January 8th too. So I strongly encourage all of y'all to apply, because I think all the work has been really interesting too.
The info is in the chat. Well, thanks so much for taking time to do this. I know the tour is starting this weekend for some of you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much.
much.